Okay, guys, if you didn't read the article, that I posted, it's an article. I mean, I'm not gonna give you the whole fucking article. It's live. It's live, all right. I'm not gonna give you the whole article, but the headline of the article is leading computer science professor says it's getting harder to find a job for everybody. You know, everybody's struggling to find a job. And that's coming from a leading computer science professor, Henry Farid, something like that. Sorry, Henry, if I mispronounced your name, but you know, studies show, man, the data doesn't lie. You know what I mean? It's getting harder to find a job. Like, I have my theories, but I'm not going to share my theories because they're my theories. And you know, I don't need to share my theories on why I think it's getting harder to find a job. You know what I mean? The studies show, the data is there. You know, it's getting harder and harder to find a jobs for, you know, people my age, people in my generation. You know what I mean? I can't imagine how it's going to look in 10 or 20 more years. You know what I mean? And it's bad enough that all these freaking people are upset at the presidency, you know what I mean? And they're fucking causing all sorts of damage and harm to people, innocent people who don't even pay attention to politics, you know what I mean? Like, because we got other things going on. You know, we're not that financially well off to be worried about fucking what the fuck President Trump is doing, you know what I mean, every fucking day, every fucking waking hour of the fucking day, you know what I mean? And those people who are upset are doing more fucking damage than, you know what I mean, to public property. They're damaging public property, you know what I mean, and they're fucking upset just because Donald Trump was the fucking president, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I'm pro Donald Trump, you know what I'm saying? Like, some of his policies are ridiculous, you know what I mean? And fucking most of his policies are fucking delusional. But a lot of the times I think he's just fucking throwing shit out there just to fucking, you know what I mean, just to say shit because, you know what I mean, he's the position, that to be in that position is probably fucking insane, you know, he's probably, but still, you know what I'm saying, like, the data's there, you know what I mean, from a leading computer science professor at UC Berkeley, you know what I mean? Like, the data's there. It's getting harder to find a job, especially for people my age and people in my generation. And you know what I mean? Like, I have my theories, but at the same time, it's like, you know, when something like that comes up, it's like, shit. You know what I mean? Like, how can how can people from my generation kind of fucking how, like, where do we start to kind of like turn this into, kind of fucking move this into a direction where you know, people from my generation can flourish, you know, people in my generation can flourish in the workplace, you know what I mean? So that's just my take on it, guys. If you didn't read the article, I recommend reading it. It's crazy because I was already writing an article on, you know, on the job force, workforce, and all that shit. I was already writing an article about it, and I'll post that up, you know, once I finish it. And it just tripped me out, guys. When I saw this article, I had to reshare it because I think it's very important that everybody knows what's going on, not just in pop culture, you know what I mean, but you know what's going on in day-to-day life for us here, you know what I mean? And I thought it was crazy when I saw that article talking about leading computer science professor says it's getting harder and harder for young people to get jobs for some reason, you know what I mean? And that tripped me out because I was already writing an article about that. And yeah, guys, like I'm saying, it's like, you know, how does my generation kind of, you know, take that in? How does that take that in and kind of problem solve? You know what I mean? Like, how do we troubleshoot this issue? You know what I mean? So to say, you know what I mean? No pun intended. Like, how do how do people from my generation troubleshoot this issue? Because people from my generation are fucking worried about fucking completely different things. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. Anyways, guys, like I'm saying, if you didn't read the article, I'm sharing it on my pages, on my social pages, just because I think it's something that we should all be reading, and maybe not like dedicating our lives to problem solving this, but but at least taking at least like a couple of minutes to read the article to kind of, I don't know, to help the situation, I guess, for lack of better words. Anyways, guys, have a good week. Hopefully, all this chaos and anarchy that's going on because of the presidency, because of the polls, and hopefully all this, again, doesn't get too crazy and too out of hand. From the West Coast, signing off.